because the paints business has been heating up. New entrants, big entrants, and of course, a new player in town now. Parth, let me start with how you managed to chase down this acquisition, because we know the #1 market share company was looking out at Akzo Nobel, so was #2, so were several others, but you finally got them here at the end.
Yeah, so we entered the market in 2019, and we've been one of India's fastest growing paint companies. We clocked a revenue of more than 2,000 crores last financial year, and we have always aspired to get to and become like certain brands. And Dulux has been one of those aspirations. Even when I was studying in college and when I was working on the project of, which is the next business the JSW group should enter, and I zeroed in on paints, one of the brands which were the aspirational category was obviously globally was Dulux, and even in India. So when Akzo Nobel Global announced their strategic review last year in September, we felt that this was too good an opportunity not to really go for, not to really fight for. And when we looked at the synergies, both on the decorative side of the business as well as on the liquid coatings industrial side of the business, we felt that the two businesses of JSW Paints and Akzo Nobel India were highly complementary in nature. And that's why we said that, if we truly want to become a top 3 player in this category, if we truly want to gain size and scale fast, and we truly want to operate like JSW operates in other businesses, then this is the natural partner for Akzo Nobel India. So, we really worked hard on it. I went and met Greg in Amsterdam and introduced myself. He knew of the family because he had worked in India for many years in various different companies. And we struck a deal, and I think it's a deal that is mutually rewarding for both players, and it really gives JSW Paints now the heft, the might, and the power of the brand of not only Dulux but also International, also Sikkens, also Wanda, and truly gives us the ability to leverage their international R&D capabilities and know-how, and our know-how on India, and really get a marriage that hopefully can take us to the next level.
Greg, I want to hear your version of this story, because there were a lot of suitors, and finally Parth has clinched that deal. JSW Paints has got you there. What was in that particular pitch that worked for you? What was the winning proposition?
Well, first of all, it's a wonderful partner. It's a family whose name speaks for itself, and JSW as a group is a wonderful success story. But beyond that, it's true that we talked to a lot of people and that there were a lot of parties interested. But at the end of the day, what made the difference is that Parth has a clear vision. He's got a very supportive family with a clear governance that allows him to be agile and to move quickly. And then we share the same values, so it was an easy decision.
You talked about how, even when you were in college, the paints business is something that you had identified. And I'm just going to pick on that part, because right now, and we saw that in the last financial year, but right now, if you just zoom out and look at what's happening with the paints business in India, it's hit a bit of a rough spot. Discretionary spends have not quite kept up, and at the same time, there's competition heating up. So it's a great acquisition, but it is a bit of a tough time.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the paints industry in general, there are two segments of it, right? There's the decorative segment as well as the industrial segment. Now, last year was an anomaly where the decorative industry was flat. And we saw the largest players in the space actually lose market share, and the newer entrants like us and others gain share. But overall, the industry was flat. And the decorative industry has been growing at a CAGR of 10 to 12% for nearly 2 decades. So it is bound to have a couple of years here and there of flat growth. And last year can be attributed to the general election. It can be attributed to a lot of state elections, which led to government spending also slow down. We're hopeful that that comes back. Industrial, on the other hand, had a very strong year, and as India industrializes, as India tries to become the manufacturing hub not only for our domestic demand but also for global, industrial will continue to see growth. And what really excites me about this opportunity is that we have two engines of growth. We have the decorative engine of growth, which, like you rightly said, has hit a rough water. There is intense competition. There is increasingly stiff competition. And then there's the industrial coating side of the things, where we are now the number 2 player. Between ANIL and JSW Paints, we become number 2. And we have a clear pathway there how to leverage their global technology and know-how and our B2B relationships to go to number 1. So, so we are very confident that, you know, the sum of the two companies coming together will allow us to take this company to the next level.
It's also a deal at great valuations. When there were, you know, the back of the book calculations being made over the last several months of what Akzo Nobel would go for, the number was significantly higher, or maybe that was priced in your stock as well, than what you ended up at. So what was the key consideration there? Of any of light you can throw on that aspect from either of you?
I think the math confuses people,
Yeah.
which is often the case. You're talking about a publicly traded entity, Akzo Nobel India Limited,
Yes.
of which we're taking out the powder business. So there's a split. And then we're putting in some of the IP, and then we're taking out the research center, and then we're taking out a dividend. So anybody that makes a straight comparison between the share price and the value announced is either a visionary or a math genius. But the reality is that it's a fair deal for both parties.
Yeah, they're both of those, visionaries and math geniuses trading in the market.
Especially in India, there's a lot of math geniuses, but it's
no, because that's what I mean. That was what was being priced in by investors, etc. So that was a bit of a question when the deal was announced. You saw that in the stock price on day one, but of course it evened out. But you're explaining it well, that there is a whole bit that you retain, and you retain your presence in India as well, right?
we do lots of ins and outs, and at the end of the day, I think Parth will agree that we both got what we were looking for out of this. They got a great business. We got what we think is a fair valuation and a long-term partner, because we will be the technology provider under a royalty agreement for the coating businesses, and therefore we're together for the long term.
So what you get out of this, of course, is the brand, the Dulux brand, and of course the technology, etc. How do you now leverage on that part in a space which has become extremely competitive? What there is the cutting edge? Because you have, for example, the number 1 player who I think has 5x of the distribution touch points of the number 3 player, 4x of the number 2. How do you now plan to move ahead in a space like that?
Yeah, sure. So on the decorative side of things, Akzo Nobel India, which is Dulux, has about 19,000 retailers across the country, 19,000 machines, tinting machines installed, and JSW Paints has about 9,000. So when we put the two together, we have about a 10% overlap. So we get to about 27,000 machines in the market. So one, there is huge synergy to unlock amongst these 27,000 in itself, because if you look at Dulux, Dulux is the leading player when it comes to premium paint, luxury premium paint. Dulux is known for that, and they have a disproportionate share of their business as well as a disproportionate share of the market of luxury is with Dulux. When you look at JSW Paints, we are one of the fastest growing companies in the value segment as well as in the mass premium segment. And hence, our 9,000 retailers will now get access to the Dulux products. Their 19,000 Dulux retailers will get access to our value and mass premium. And here we will be able to increase the share of business in each of these counters. This in itself will unlock huge amounts of synergies. Second is, if you look at the geographical presence of both companies, although both companies are pan-India, Dulux is very strong in metros and in tier 1 and tier 2 towns. JSW Paints is very strong in tier 3 and tier 4 towns. So the sum of the two will allow us to increase the JSW presence in metros and tier 1, tier 2, and increase the presence of Dulux and other products in our tier 3 and tier 4. There's also a huge synergy on the distribution side. If you look at the distribution side, Dulux follows a direct to retail model in metros and tier 1, whereas they follow a distribution led model in the smaller towns. JSW Paints is a direct to retail model across the country. So once again, once we get in and hopefully get all the approvals, CCI, and complete the open offer, That's when we'll actually get into the business. We'll understand the brand architecture that we want to go with. We will reinvest in both the brands. We will build up the Dulux brand and dial that up because it's a household name that everybody knows. But we want to get it back on the tip of everyone's tongue, like it has been, and also dial up the spends on the JSW side, and truly go to the consumer with a combined offering, saying that if you're value conscious, you have JSW. If you want luxury and premium, you have Dulux. And across the value chain, whether it's wood finishes, waterproofing, construction chemicals, we'll bring the power of the R&D capability of Akzo Nobel, and this will allow us to scale. And I'm sure the other retailers that you mentioned who are 4X and the number one is 4X or the number two and all of that, I'm sure a lot of them will be looking at us and being like, look at these guys. Now they have the complete offering, they have global R&D know-how, they have global capabilities, and they have the power of an Indian group behind it. So let us, why are we over leveraging on one of those brands? Let us join hands with Dulux and JSW and work with them. So we would welcome them and we hope to scale very quickly.
No, so wait, let me go back to that. What do you mean by let us join hands?
Means let us also sell their product. Why are we selling only their product?
Okay, no, I just thought, is there more M&A in the offing or more
I'm
consolidation?
saying the retailers.
Okay, the retailers.
The retailers,
okay.
they might look at an alternative as well, and now we become a more attractive alternative because we give the complete offering. We give them Dulux, we give them JSW's offerings all together. So now they can really compete with anybody else.
So, I was reading your quotes also from the press conference earlier in the day, and one of them is that we will be the number one brand. I don't know if you were misquoted, or aspire to be the number one market share leader in this space. Is that aspiration there? How do you think it can happen? What is the timeline you're looking at?
No, I don't think I said that. I think the first step for us, which is very clear and it's on the horizon, is from the fourth largest player together, can we come into the top three? And coming third is something that I think we will definitely achieve very quickly.
You're on the verge. I think it's 11 and 10 between number 3 and number 4. So you're nearly there.
No, the pecking order is 30,000 crores is Asian Paints, 11,000 crores is Berger, 7,500 crores is Nerolac, and 6,000 crores would be the combined entity. So the first step would be obviously from 6, how quickly can we become number 3. But in terms of the brand, I truly believe that Dulux has the power of being the number one brand in this country. And that's what we want to invest in. That's what we want to amp up the spends on and match the number one market share player in the amount we spend on the brand.
So suffice to say, no change in the name of the brand, of course, because that's the key proposition. What about in the name of the listed company or the branding of the listed company? What happens to that entity? Is there a reverse merger? Any light that you can throw on that?
Yeah, once we complete all the process and come into majority ownership of that entity, we will change the name of that company to JSW something.
Okay.
And in terms of the reverse merger, like I said, first we want to get into that business. We want to understand the cultures. We want to start unlocking the synergies. And at an opportune time, the natural thing for us to do would be to reverse merge JSW Paints into this entity.
Okay, so it will still be a listed entity
100%.
that will continue to be there. Just a word from you, Greg, on how you see the Indian paints market now. And you've had that ringside view. It becomes more of Parth's problem right now to make Dulux the first number 3 and then move it up the chain. But how have you seen it and the kind of, I think, dip in appetite that we have seen in the space?
It's an interesting time in history in the sense that there is a deep-pocketed player that's decided to throw money at the issue. It disrupts the market a little bit because you've got a historical market leader which has been struggling over the last few quarters. And if you look at the competitive landscape, everybody reports their numbers because they're all listed. Akzo Nobel India Limited is the one player that's continued to hold up really well in a market where some other players are under profit pressure and also under volume pressure. So what that tells you is that there's strengths in the brand, that the premium positioning is also a natural defense for against somebody who enters with mass market aspirations. But also this is, people like to think that situations are unique, but history repeats itself. There's a lot of countries where players from the cement or the gypsum board industry have tried to come in by building a brand from scratch. You had that in China 10 years ago. I could give you a few more examples if you give me more time after this conversation. And usually it doesn't end well because building a brand is really expensive and it's really time consuming. And India is not a market that is lacking for capacity. If you take our combined businesses, we can pretty much double the size of our business with the existing capacity. So building factories doesn't bring you anything. It brings additional capacity to a market that already has capacity. Building a brand is tough, and I think that Parth and the JSW group made a very wise choice, which is that it's better to buy a brand that's already established, especially one with the credentials of Dulux, and build on that rather than to try to go bottom up from a blank page. But at the end of the day, these things, as they've happened in other geographies, they settle over time because most people over time want to make money in the businesses that they're in, and otherwise they choose a different approach. So let's let the Indian market settle down. I think there's going to be 2-3 years of turbulence. On the deco side, the coating businesses are doing really well, and then you'll see a market that will stabilize, that will mature, that'll probably consolidate a little bit more, and I think that bodes well for the prospects of our business, your business, pretty soon going forward.
Yeah. So on the consolidation aspect of it, on the bottom up, I'm not saying the top 3 players, Parth, but more smaller players that exist, not all of them listed, some of them listed. Do you think it makes sense with the ambitions that you've now outlined to start shoring up? And like Greg said, this is an issue that one big player is throwing money at. Yeah. That's something you're going to have to do.
No, I don't think it makes sense for us to look at any of the smaller players unless there is a smaller player with proprietary technology that we don't already have access to, which I don't believe is the case because of the partnership between JSW and Akzo Nobel. So I don't think any of the smaller players would be attractive for this combined entity to look at, and I think now the focus is really going to be how to leverage the synergies and how to scale up the business.
But the positioning is going to be premium because that's what Dulux's positioning is.
Yeah, so like I said, we need to fight in every segment. We're not going to only fight in the premium segment. And hence, once we get into the business, we have to arrive at the brand architecture and make sure that we can fight in the value segment, in the mass premium segment, in the premium segment, everything, waterproofing, wood finish, construction chemicals. We have to be fighting in all segments and gain share everywhere. So hence, we are not yet clear on what the brand architecture is going to be. But obviously, Dulux is going to play a huge role in that because it's the biggest recall brand, now in the JSW stable probably.
Yeah, I think that tune, right, of that ad, which we've all heard growing up. Yeah. Why don't you guys say it?
Dulux, Dulux, Dulux.
Oh, perfect.
I can't match that. That's wonderful.
Super. Best of luck, guys, and thank you so much for your time with us today on NDTV Profit.
Thank you.
Thank you.